Welcome to the Child Care Director's Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you're a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sacoccio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's Erica with the Child Care Director's Chair podcast, and I want to ask you something. Do you ever feel like there are just not enough minutes in the day? I know you do, especially in early child education. Today, we're talking about how teachers can stop surviving the day and start mastering the time. We're going to explore real challenges that educators face, practical strategies that actually work, and why managing time well can not only just change your schedule, but change your entire teaching experience. Today, we have our wonderful friend, Adva. She is going to talk to us a little bit. She is an educator, she is a teacher, and she is a coach for teachers. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love having you. We're going to keep having you over and over again. Over and over again, for sure. So my listeners who listen, you might know Adva already. She has been on our show before. And she also has her own podcast and speaks and does all the things, and she's ready to launch a book. But so tell us a little bit about your journey in early childhood education and what led you to focus on time management for teachers, because there's so many expectations.
So I started in early childhood 12 years ago, and I've been in the classroom for a long time. And when I started teaching, I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of time management, and I would always leave things for home. I was always bringing things home with me, and I was always doing work over weekends and at nights. And about 8 years into teaching, I was so burnt out that I knew something needed to change. And at the time, I thought that it was leaving the classroom that needed to change. But in reality, I really needed to change the way I was working and the way I was doing things so that I was managing my time properly, but I was also able to give time to the things that I love. So whether that's the people that I love or random activities that I like to do, like working out or going to a dance class, those were things that I needed to start prioritizing again, which I wasn't doing before because I lacked the skills to manage my time. And therefore, I was bringing a lot home with me and burning myself out.
Yeah, I think that's probably every teacher and every director nodding their head right now, because I think we all do it and we've all been guilty of it. Some of us catch on sooner than others, but eventually you come to that place and you're like, oh, this is way too much, right?
Yep.
What would you say the biggest misconception that teachers have about managing their time effectively?
So there are two things that come to mind when I think about this. Number one is that they need more time, which I don't necessarily, I know that time is very limited in school, but I also know that sometimes, I know this from my own habits, sometimes we're in such a society that's distracting, whether it's with our phones or with our computers or whatever else. A lot of times we're just not using our time in an effective way.
Yeah.
So that is the first thing that comes to mind, is this idea of needing more time. And also, I think, especially for newer teachers, they aren't taught how to manage their time in the school day. And sometimes it can be really challenging for newer teachers to figure out what the priorities are so that they can do the work and not have to bring it home.
Yeah. Let's talk about like how interruptions like administrative tasks, parent communication typically impact the teacher's daily schedule.
So I was actually just writing about this inside of my book about
I'm sure.
how our schedule as teachers, just as a whole, is very unpredictable. Like, we may have a routine, we may have a schedule that we go along, we may have a plan for the day, but it doesn't always go according to plan. So when interruptions come about, if we are not prepared for those interruptions, for that unpredictability, that's when things can start getting messed up. And teachers can start getting overwhelmed and stressed out and burnt out because those interruptions are interrupting their planned time. And therefore, they're carrying over to the next day, or they're carrying over and bringing it home with them rather than planning for that unpredictability.
Yeah. Can you share 2 or 3 practical time management strategies that teachers can implement immediately without adding more stress?
Yeah. So the first thing that I always tell teachers when I work with them is boundaries. And I know that's so much easier said than done. But when I started setting boundaries, when I left the classroom and I came back into the classroom, the first thing I did was set strict boundaries with both myself and with my boss and with the teachers I was working with. Because at the end of the day, I knew that I needed to focus on my life outside of teaching when I came home. And I didn't want my teacher life to be pulled into my personal life and be taking up a lot of space. So that was the first thing, is setting strict boundaries. And when I tell teachers to set these boundaries, I always also tell them to make sure that they have someone who can hold them accountable for it. Because we all know that we can set boundaries and we can say we're not going to do this, but then we do it anyway because we feel guilty. We don't have enough time during the day. We are too stressed to think about not doing it in that moment. That's like the core piece, is really setting boundaries and finding a way to hold yourself accountable so that you stick to those boundaries. So something like leaving work at work is a boundary that I've established over the last 2 years being back in school, and it has literally stuck. I've had my colleagues reach out to me asking me to do something, and I say, I'm sorry, this is my personal time. I will do it tomorrow morning when I get into work. The second strategy that I always tell teachers is something that I learned about. It's called office hours. And it's not a time for like students to come in and be with you, especially if you're an early childhood teacher, it doesn't make a difference. But what I always tell teachers is to take an hour or two after school where you are focused on specific tasks and you literally have your phone on Do Not Disturb. You know exactly what tasks you're focused on during that hour or two, once or twice a week. And that's it. And after that hour or two after school, you're done. Teaching goes in your bag. It's done. It's left. And you're able to focus on other things. So office hours usually is about 2 hours a week. It doesn't have to be very long. And when you are sitting down and focusing and you know you're intentional about what you're focusing on, you can get those things done very quickly. Because at the end of the day, when I hear teachers saying to me, like, I'm up until midnight, I'm like, how productive are you really during those hours? Like,
Yeah.
are you really that productive? Because if you took an hour and intentionally set up a time for you to work without the disruptions, you would get just as much done in that hour instead of being up until all hours of the night. So those are like the two biggest things, is setting boundaries and creating those office hours to have focused work time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And sometimes as a childcare owner, I'll come to the center on a weekend or a night, and when there's no one there and the phone isn't ringing and people aren't walking in and out, I could literally do a week worth of work in like 3 hours at my center when no one is there. So that is very, very true. Yeah, that's very true.
So I personally don't. And the reason is because it doesn't work for me for whatever reason, but I always do recommend it for teachers to do. I do think that with time blocking, you have to be aware of how long the tasks are going to take you so that you can really schedule out your office hours or your focus work time. And that takes some time to figure out. But I think if time blocking works for you, it's something that you can absolutely do. And especially during something like office hours where you're doing that focused deep work.
Yeah. I found that because when I first started, I felt like and this might be, some of my ADHD, but like I would jump from a task to a different task and then back to like a similar task. And I don't do that anymore. Like I'll answer all my emails in the morning and then I'm not going in there every hour. I'll check it again at lunchtime and again before I leave during at the end of the day. So, because if not, I was finding I was in there constantly, or a teacher might say, "Oh, did you see the message that Johnny's mom put in the app?" And I'm like, "No, let me go look." Like, I did it 3 times a day. I took, maybe 15 minutes tops, answered what I needed to, and just, kind of kept it moving because, yeah, you can jump from thing to thing very easily. Um, if you don't have, I think, I think there's probably not one plan that works for everybody, but I think the secret is finding the plan that works for you and then be consistent with it. I would say.
Exactly. And also jumping from task to task, whether or not it's ADHD related. I used to do it also, and
Mm,
I don't have ADHD. But what happens is when you jump from task to task, you actually don't get as much done in
mhm,
that time span. That's why I always say to teachers when they're doing these office hours, these deep work focused
mhm.
sessions, to really be intentional about what you want to get done and focus on that one task that you're looking to get done and then move to the next one so that you're not jumping from place to place and you're not getting yourself all mixed up where you're actually not getting as much done as you should be getting done in that time span.
Yeah. How can teachers realistically balance like lesson planning, teaching responsibilities, and self care without feeling overwhelmed? Because if you find like, because we're such caring people, if you're like all in on one thing, you feel guilty about the other thing that you didn't do. Right?
Yeah,
That's a real thing. So, how
very
can
real.
teachers like realistically, and I hate the word balance, like maybe ebb and flow in a way that makes sense because balance is an illusion.
Yeah, I don't personally believe that balance is plausible in life, just in general. I think there are moments where work will take up a lot more space in your life, and then there are times where your life just lifes, and that's just
Mhm.
how it goes. I think it's really about setting intentions for yourself. And like as we approach the new year, we're always looking to like do better, change, do whatever we need to do to make this year a better year. So that's why, like, I think when you set intentions about what you want your week to look like, what you want your month to look like, and then break it down from there, you can actually create more of that quote balance or the harmony that you want between work and life. And there are times where teaching is going to be much busier and you're going to need to focus more on teaching. And then there are times where life is just going to life and you're going to have to focus on life, and that's okay. I don't think that there's like a 50-50 split. I think it really is based on what you prioritize. I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
if you're prioritizing work over family, then that's what's going to be present in your life. If
Hmm.
you are finding a rhythm that works for you where you're prioritizing work, you're showing up to work, you're doing your job, but you also are able to close the computer, close your your planning book, and move into life outside of that. That is amazing. For me, something that I always do is I set a boundary where I leave work at work. I don't do work at home. And for some teachers, that's not always possible. And I acknowledge that, which is why I think office hours can be such an important and crucial piece. But at the end of the day, that's where the boundaries come in. And that's where you have to figure out what's important to you and then set that intention.
Yeah. So you're speaking at the Early Education Empowerment Conference coming up in May. What's one thing that you hope that educators walk away from taking your session?
So I actually break down time management into a 3-step framework, and I'll be sharing that at the conference. And this is a framework that I've shared before and that have helped a tremendous amount of teachers to really be able to manage their time in a way that feels good and that isn't taking away from things that they want to be doing outside of the classroom.
Okay, awesome. So, guys, this conversation ties directly to the work that we'll be doing at the Early Education Empowerment Conference, where educators will walk away with real tools, real systems, and strategies to take control of their time and reduce their burnout. We want to invite you to join us at the Early Education Empowerment Conference happening on May 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Crown Plaza in Warwick, Rhode Island. And right now, during the month of January, we have a BOGO deal. Buy one ticket, get one free, which is insane. Bring a friend, bring a colleague, bring a director, assistant director, members of your team. Just bring somebody. I want to be there to help you stop feeling overwhelmed. We want you to stop feeling empowered, and this conference is for you. So secure your spot, bring someone with you, and join us in May as we learn how to master those minutes that matter the most. Thank you again for tuning in to the Child Care Director's Chair. Thank you, Yvonne, for always being an amazing guest. We will see you all soon at the Early Childhood Empowerment Conference. Bye.